From my office, I heard the alarm clock beeping again for about the third time that morning. Our daughter, Kira, you see, could sleep through her alarm clock very easily. In fact, Dawn had gone in to wake her earlier that morning when it first went off. At the sound of her name, Kira jumped out of bed, fearful she had overslept. Obviously, she lay down again after Dawn had left for work, because it was going off again. Not wanting to stop what I was working on, I called out to Kira from my desk, hoping she'd hear. The beeping just continued, however, so I headed for her room, calling out her name on the way. It always amazed me how she could sleep through all of that noise. But that's our Kira. Or at least it was until the 22nd of July, 2010. As a pastor, I do a great deal of writing, but I find myself at a loss to describe what happened that morning. You see, words are inadequate to express the horror that was mine as I frantically tried to breathe life into my daughter's body. I mean, I could still feel the warmth of life still lingering as I held her in my arms. But I was too late to save her, and our little girl was gone. Before we share Kira's story with you today, let me tell you a little bit about our daughter. Kira was the second born of our three daughters. She was a caring, funny young girl who was always looking out for the underdog. When she grew up, it came as no surprise to us that she wanted to pursue a career in deaf education, or that later, during the end of her college years, she also developed an interest in working with autistic children. Like so many others that are afflicted with eating disorders, Kira was highly motivated, intelligent, and a determined young woman. I mention this because I believe eating disorders are robbing our nation of some of its most gifted youth. You see, Kira was extremely active in high school. She participated heavily in sports, the arts, and held a number of leadership positions. And even though she worked part-time for most of her high school years, she still managed to graduate third in her class. Pursuing her longtime dream of becoming a teacher of the deaf, she triple majored in college. And overachiever that she was well on to finishing her program in just 4.5 years. And while her eating disorder eventually derailed her for a time, she ultimately earned her degree while holding down 2 part-time jobs. One of those jobs was as an in-home instructor for autistic children, something she thoroughly enjoyed and was extremely good at. Kira was also a very talented writer. During the last few weeks that we had her with us, we talked about the book that she would one day write in hopes of helping others suffering from eating disorders. Unfortunately, all of these hopes and dreams, plus the ones that most young women look forward to, like getting married and having children, all of these dreams died with her at the age of 26. Before I go any further, let me take a moment to tell you why we are here. Why we are asking everyone to support the FREED Act. One of the most overwhelming and frustrating things about trying to get help for our daughter was the overwhelming or overall lack of knowledge and understanding that the medical community in general has when it comes to helping someone with an eating disorder. We were able to take Kira to the top-rated hospital in the whole area of Milwaukee, yet even they clearly struggled to provide her with the health care she needed. Now, if a first-class hospital finds it difficult to treat patients with eating disorders, what kind of care will patients receive when they don't have access to the best? And how are healthcare professionals, regardless of the caliber of their hospital, how are they supposed to provide proper care unless someone starts doing a whole lot more research on eating disorders and starts educating the medical community? When it comes to providing care for sufferers of eating disorders, I believe that it all starts here with research and education. And until we shore up this area, all of the other dominoes will continue to fall, claiming the lives of eating disorder sufferers. The second frustration for us was trying to get Kira the health care she needed to get well. You see, Kira struggled with her eating disorder for over 8 years. When she reached the age of 24, however, she was no longer covered under our health insurance, a policy which has since been changed to age 26. And although Kira worked well over 40 hours a week, her 2 part-time jobs, as you might expect, did not offer any health benefits. As a result, during the final 2 years of her struggle with an eating disorder, Kira ended up getting less of the care she needed, and over time, her eating disorder slowly became more severe.
And although we were unaware of it at the time, Kira's body weight hit an all-time low last June. However, this became a catalyst for an unprecedented string of success for Kira in her struggle with her eating disorder. Following the scare, Kira managed to go 10 straight days without a single binge purge cycle. Unfortunately, Kira began suffering what is called as refeeding syndrome. In other words, her body no longer knew how to utilize even the small amount of food she was taking in. And as a result, she started retaining fluid in her feet, ankles, and legs, and she was in extreme pain whenever she walked. So on June 15th, we took Kira to the emergency room at Frederick Hospital, where she was admitted into the ICU for 4 days. There, they worked to correct a multitude of life-threatening complications resulting from the refeeding syndrome, and it was only by the grace of God that we didn't lose her then. In an attempt to correct all of these complications, they began pouring multiple liters of fluid into her body through an arterial line and an IV. Kira was fighting extremely hard in the ICU, and she was determined now more than ever to finally beat her eating disorder. By the 5th day of her hospitalization, her EKG was improving, her vital signs and her electrolytes had all returned to normal. However, Kira now had gained 50 pounds due to the fluid buildup that was throughout her tissues in her body and including her lungs. This caused her extreme pain, and she could barely walk. Around 3 a.m. on the 5th day, Kira called us in a panic. During rounds, the doctor had told her that she might be able to go home the next day. This just underscores what we said earlier about the general lack of knowledge and understanding when treating somebody with an eating disorder. Kira was terrified by this news, believing that she soon would be left without the benefit of any medical care to deal with all of this fluid buildup and to overcome her eating disorder. As you can imagine, the thought of taking her home in her current condition was likewise very disturbing to us. But when I spoke to her doctor, she told me that since her numbers were all returning to normal, she was physically stable, and they wouldn't be able to keep her much longer due to the hospital regulations. Refusing to take her home like this, I asked for a family meeting with the medical and psychiatric teams in hopes of coming up with a better plan. At this point, I needed to grasp for a moment. When Kira was admitted into the ICU, like we said, she had no insurance, so we immediately applied for presumptive disability on her behalf in order that she might receive or at least qualify for some of the care she needed. Getting presumptive disability, however, would take time, and Kira was quickly running out of time. In our meeting with the doctors, the psychiatrist managed to buy us more time in the hospital, a total of 2.5 weeks, which is the time that it took for the preliminary approval for her disability. This preliminary approval qualified her for Medicaid through the state of Wisconsin, making it possible for her to be transferred on July 1st to another hospital that had a mental health wing. Unfortunately, this facility didn't treat eating disorders specifically either, but they were willing to take her temporarily, monitoring her vitals and nutrition as her body began processing the excess buildup of fluids, and this bought us some additional time. You see, what Kira really needed was to go to a facility that had a program to specifically treat eating disorders. And we actually have 2 such programs right in our own backyard. However, in order for her to go or be admitted to these facilities without any insurance coverage, we would have had to write out an initial check for $25,000, and then they'd be prepared to pay thousands more, approximately $20,000 per month. Since this option wasn't feasible for either Kira or us, the only option was to wait for the approval of her Social Security disability, which would give her Medicaid with an HMO program, and in turn allow her to go into one of these programs. So after a week at the second hospital, her medical team decided they could not keep her any longer because once again they felt she was medically stable and could go home to await that decision for the Social Security disability. Their discharge plan for Kira was for her to see a psychiatrist in 4 weeks, see a brand new counselor in our county in 3 weeks, and to see a nurse practitioner within 7 days of her discharge. We were furious and Kira was scared because we all knew she was not safe for discharge. We felt she was falling between the cracks of getting the real help she needed. I pleaded with the social worker at the hospital to help us find a safer plan for her discharge. In researching, they found a program specifically for eating disorders at a 3rd hospital. The frustrating thing here is that even the healthcare professionals don't know where the available resources are for helping patients with eating disorders. If we would have known about this facility when she was being discharged from the 1st hospital, she could have been admitted directly into this program as an inpatient and started receiving treatment specifically for her eating disorder much earlier. Had this happened, Kira would probably be with us today. So the day after we found out about this program, we were told that this hospital denied her acceptance because we lived outside their county. She had state Medicaid from Wisconsin, so I fought for her acceptance. I even called Senator Cole's office for help and also to ask them if they could help expedite her Social Security disability. She ultimately was accepted into their program as an outpatient on a limited basis while she awaited the Social Security disability approval. It was decided she would stay where she was through the weekend and then begin this new program on a Monday morning. So on July 12th, Kira started the outpatient program, which ran from 8 to 5:30 daily. Here she received treatment specifically for her eating disorder. She worked with psychiatrists, dietitians, she had group and individual counseling, and she had art and music therapy. She ate all of her meals and snacks there, and she was monitored very closely. During this time, we were checking every couple of days on her Social Security disability decision in Madison, and we had the additional benefit of our senator's office working on this too. We were also we're in contact with the other area eating disorder hospitals so that as soon as she was approved, we could get her transferred to one of those as an inpatient for the true care she really needed. During her first 10 days of treatment, Kira was doing amazing. We actually saw our daughter coming back for the first time in 8 years. She was eating up to 2,400 calories per day successfully. She had lost all that extra fluid from her hospitalization, and her body was finally able to process the nutrition properly. On July 21st, Kira's potassium became critically low once again, as is very common for people that are recovering. And her psychiatrist put her on an oral supplement and told her that they may need to hospitalize her for IV potassium if it didn't improve by the next day. We also got a call on July 21st stating that Kira had been approved for her Social Security disability and that she could now enroll in the Medicaid HMO program of her choice. In other words, Kira could finally begin an inpatient program that would treat her eating disorder 24/7. She would finally receive the care she so desperately needed. Kira was so excited and so thankful for this help and was more than ready to get started. But as Joe mentioned earlier, Kira died of cardiac arrest the next morning.
It's been almost 9 months since the Lord took Kira home. And while we are thankful to God that her struggle is over, the loss of our daughter remains extremely difficult to bear. You see, when you lose a child, theirs aren't the only dreams that go unrealized. As parents, we too have dreams. We dream about watching our children get married and start families of their own. We dream about the sons or daughters-in-law they will someday get to know. We dream about our children, grandchildren, and our great-grandchildren. We dream about watching our children's lives unfold before them, watching them as they strive to attain all of their hopes and dreams. But we will never see any of this for our Kira. Our dreams died along with her. So these are the things that neither of us will get to see. And I pray that none of you will ever have to experience that pain. So where do we go from here? How do we stop this? As I mentioned earlier, we believe it all begins with research and education, two key components of the FREED Act. Until we do a better job at this, we will never be able to offer eating disorder sufferers access to the care they need. Kira's dreams will never come true, and neither will our dreams for her. But I know there are countless other Kiras out there whose dreams still hang in the balance. Their lives have not yet been snuffed out by this vicious disorder. And it is for this reason that we are all here. It's time to draw a line in the sand. It's time to start saving our children.